Several quit because they were ordered.
That's a cool.
Believe it or not, right?
That's okay, thank you.
You know, and that was the hard part for me, is that you could really can tell what your service is by the way that you just thought we got to because basically all the you know, I can't order correct. So basically, bought me lunch and said, here's the check for appreciation. No board member showed up. Lousy coffee. I was like, don't let the door in the ass. Was I that much of a disruption?
No, you were actually.
I feel like I could have done better, you know? I guess you always feel that when you're after board service, right? But just think you could have done it.
The thing is, if you do, you
True. Good to see you. Lovely to talk to you.
thank you. Now, there are a few, Jim,
Yeah, I love Jim.
everybody tries.
So Ed seats probably going to be
She has her reasons. What's the oddest? You were
I didn't get to see
like to call to order the South San Antonio Independent School District Board of Trustees regular board meeting. The date is January the 17th, 2018, and the time is 6:19 p.m. Can we have roll call, please? Mrs. Martinez.
Mrs. Angelina Osteguin,
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.,
Here.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra, here. Mrs. Connie Prado,
Present.
Mrs. Elda Flores, present.
Okay, we'd now like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge, the prayer, and the call to action.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please bow your heads. Lord, please guide our hearts as we conduct our district's business this evening. Thank you for the continued support from our board members during their month of appreciation. Please also protect our students and employees from the bitter weather and those who have no shelter from the conditions. We ask this in your name, amen. And now the call to action. All students will enjoy successful education experiences to empower them to make decisions and enrich their lives in the future they create. You may be seated.
Okay, board members, before we go into closed executive session, I would like to change the order of the agenda and to move up the conservator's remarks before we go into closed session. Do I have any board members who are against that? Okay, if all in favor, then the conservator's remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Osteguin. It's my understanding that the district has been notified today that the conservator assignment will end effective today. I wanted to take this opportunity to say that the board has made significant progress in the almost 2 years that I've been here, and that has nothing to do with anything I've done. The board has decided to focus on student outcomes, to work collaboratively and cooperatively with the administration, and to restore the integrity of the financial management system. You are to be commended for that, and I wish you the very best as you move forward.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor. We're going to begin with Dr. Saavedra.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Castleberry. She's been with us almost 2 years and has played a major role in helping the district, helping our board, helping the administration become better educators. I totally agree with you that our board is absolutely focused on student outcomes. That's what it's all about. You've played a major role in ensuring that we basically redirect the district and ensuring that the interest of students comes first beyond anything else. So I personally want to say thank you. You've been a great person to work with. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
I too wanted to second what Dr. Saavedra said. I know we got off to a rocky start for the reason that why you were with us, but in my board service and implementing Lone Star governance, I understand now what my role is as a board member, and as long as we stay in that lane, we shouldn't have any problems. So thank you for your guided criticism and your unwavering diligence in making sure that we become a better board. Thank you. Any other board members who'd like any comments? Yes, Mrs. Brooks.
I'd like to. I echo what Dr. Saavedra has said and our president, Ms. Osteguin. And I just want to say I've had the pleasure and the honor of coming in you as a year now, but that you were here, and I knew you from way back when during our Region 20 days, and I knew that you'd be someone that would be here to guide us and help us through the moments that especially me, when I was unsure of how things should proceed with the board. Now that we have the Lone Star Governance framework that we highly believe in, and we have our student outcome goals that we will continue to work with, I want to thank you again for being here and being our guiding light towards that. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so we're now moving into closed session, and the time is 6:25 p.m. Thank you.
You asked for it, right? He never gets it. This is my first time. L1, S and L5. L5 has. Hey man, I didn't think you would. You know, the circle, right, was going to pull me up, and he dragged me trying to help me up. You know what, man, it was just hands on you. I remember. You were outside. I got you. No. That's all I remember you.
Come on,
board is back from closed meeting. The time is 8:04 p.m. And let's see, the section that we are on is on citizens to be heard. Before we begin, if we can have legal go over the guidelines.
Yes, Madam Board President, members of the board, Dr. Saavedra. At a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, members of the public will have the opportunity to address the Board of Trustees during this section on any agenda item or any subject within its jurisdiction, except a matter related to pending litigation. Each speaker should sign in on the public comment sheet available at the Board of Trustees meeting. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. The Board of Trustees may, if any member deems it necessary, limit both the number of speakers and the time allotted to each speaker upon motion and a second by any other member. Under the law, the Board of Trustees may only take action on items specifically listed on the agenda. Subject matter presented which is not part of the agenda will be referred to the appropriate department for review and subsequent action. Therefore, the Board of Trustees may not take formal action on any requests made during the public comment period, which are not on the agenda, but can refer such requests to school staff for review if appropriate. The board shall not tolerate disruption of the meeting by members of the audience or individual board members. Persons attending board meetings shall not delay, interrupt, or disrupt the proceedings or refuse to obey the orders of the presiding officer. Any disruption will result in immediate removal of members of the public and possible action of the board to remove disruptive individual board members. Normal rules of decorum are expected.
Okay, so our first citizen to be heard is Ms. Stacy Alderete.
Good evening, community members of the board. My name is Stacy Alderete. Today you will be discussing applicants who have applied for the vacant seats on the school board. I would like to remind the board, and specifically the president of the board, that although in the last board meeting it was stated not all applicants would be interviewed, that it is illegal not to interview all individuals. I would also like to remind the board that not one of them had to go through this process or answer any of these questions that have been created. The legal qualifications for these seats are very simple. You must be a resident in the area for 6 months or more, be 18 or older, and be a registered voter. Those were your questions to gain this seat. Think about it. As a concerned member of the community, taxpayer, and parent, I encourage the board to be fair and ethical. I also encourage the board to get input from the community before making a final decision. We should have a say in who represents us and our children. We know what happens when the connected are chosen. Now that the conversation is warm, let's talk about what happened today. Tonight, as we sit in a boardroom nice and warm, I would like to give you a taste of what the children of our district went through. Many had to walk to school without proper clothing for such weather. The kids who rode the bus had to wait at the bus stop in freezing, shivering temperatures. But it doesn't stop there. They had to come sit in classrooms where the temperatures sat at 56 degrees all day long. All while administration sat nice and toasty. The health and safety of our children should always be at the forefront of our district, not a dollar sign. Today's decision should have had the children's health and safety at the forefront, and it is unacceptable. Lastly, please get together our special education program. Our district scored the lowest that can be scored. The district is so concentrated on bringing special programs and the early college program that the kids who need the help the most continue to fall through the cracks. These problems were identified years ago, in fact, while I was on the board. All of our kids deserve the attention these schools of choice and early college programs receive. Our children are being failed and someone must be held accountable. The district must start making better decisions on behalf of our children. We entrust you with our children, their safety and their education, and we expect to be heard and definitely expect better results. Thank you.
The next citizen to be heard, Juan Vivi.
Good evening, board members and superintendent.
and to our community. My name is Juan Mejia. And my concern today is our kids. Number one, first, Destiny Hillary, that represents our girls basketball team for South San. The young lady that hurt Destiny during one game got only 2-game suspension, slap on the wrist for her actions.
Mr. Hill, we have to, you can't name specific students or specific incidents because we have privacy issues. So if you want, you could discuss these issues individually with an administrator, or you could just refer to the situation in a general term.
Okay, I understand that. But everyone is aware, our board members, I hope that they have the students back, period. But also, in the past, I believe I spoke to one of the administrators and was to get hold of me and never did. So where does that put the individual like myself with our concerns? If you're throwing one to the administrators and we never get results. So for that reason, I come here to speak.
Okay, so you may speak about the incident in general terms, just please refrain from naming individual students.
That's fine. So, without naming names, we all know about the incident, and the point is actually, on this incident, where does our students stand? Do we have their backs? I understand it's come to legal, and I understand you said that there's no action, any kind of litigation cannot be discussed, but it's not at litigation, but it's going to, and I hope that our board members and our superintendent have her back. There won't be a case like with the Limon case back in 1999. Thank you very much.
Tom Cummings?
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Zavedra, members of the audience. My name is Tom Cummins and I'm representing the South San AFT. Tonight, we would like to thank the board members for their service. We recognize, we want you to understand, we do recognize that the rewards are few and the sacrifices are many. As a union, we do appreciate having the opportunity to work with you. We don't always show that, but we do aspire on some occasion. But we do. And I think that now is a good time that you can really recognize the stresses on board members because we have 2 vacancies. I think that speaks to the difficulties that face you and the hard decisions that you do have to make in the time that you put in. This coming year, we are going to be facing even greater challenges than we have in the past, and it will probably continue for at least another 2 years. Hopefully by then, new elections and the legislature may have changed some. But in the meantime, we do want to work with the board as closely as possible. We have what we think is a good working relationship with the administration. We want that to continue. And so, but today, we want to thank the board members, each of you, for your service and all that you do. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our citizens to be heard. Now on to superintendent's remarks. Dr. Saavedra.
Thank you, Mrs. Game, members of the board. First of all, I'd like to also commend the board for their service. I think it was appropriate that the Texas Education Agency today, during the month of board appreciation, decided that the reasons that they had placed a conservator at South San no longer existed and removed that conservator effective today. In my earlier remarks, I thank the conservator. I think she played an important role. But at this point, I want to commend the board, because quite frankly, it is the board in working with the administration and providing the oversight that's required of the board that got the TDA to the point of saying those issues no longer exist. So my congratulations to the board for their fine work. the working relationship between the administration and the board has improved dramatically over the last couple of years and continues to improve. And we're working well together. Then we all look forward to the appointment of the board members for the 2 vacancies. And I know that the board has plans for ensuring that continuing training in governance continues with not only these board members, but the new ones as well. And I simply want to pat you in the back for the good work. Thank you.
Okay, now on to presentation and reports. Number 1, quarterly investment reports. Dr. Saavedra.
Mr. Samora, we'll introduce this one.
My apologies as I get acquainted with my new surroundings. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Saavedra. The quarterly investment report is our investment report for the period September 2017 through November 2017. You'll find attached a list of our different investments that we're investing our funds in. In total, we have 15 different investments that we're putting our funds in. Our total beginning asset value was $19,913,593. Interest was a total for the quarter, $49,159.04. Deposits made into the investments, $8,502,948.30%. Withdrawals, $10,185,404.01. Our ending asset value, $18,280,296.88. That's all.
Board members, are there any comments or questions in relation to this quarterly investment report? No? Okay. So moving on is number 2, report on the Texas Academic Performance Report, per Texas Education Code 39.306. Dr. Saavedra?
So, student members of the board, this is a required annual report. We refer to it as the TAPER report, and I'm going to call Belinda Castro to introduce this, and she'll have various members of the staff present different parts of this report.
Thank you, Dr. Saavedra, Madam President, members of the board. So this is an annual requirement for us to do a public board meeting to share our final results with the community. We've already shared our results from the STAR reports, the accountability side, STAR, and of course, what I've asked, and I know I've sent this information ahead of time to all board members so y'all had a chance to review. I do want to thank you, Ms. Prado, for sending your questions ahead of time. It really gives staff a chance to respond, so we'll be responding to your questions regarding special ed. So at first, we're going to go over the TAPER report. I'm going to have Mr. Orozco go over some highlights, and then we'll have questions if anyone has them. And then afterward, we will have staff present the piece about special education, where we're staged, our target improvement plan, and strategies that we've sent into TA, and we'll address your questions at that time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Orozco.
Okay, good evening, everyone. First off, since it's my first presentation for this new year, Happy New Year, and of course, Happy Board Appreciation Month. Thank you for your service. So what I'm going to go over, as Mrs. Castro said, was the Texas Academic Performance Report, which we all refer to as TAPER. What the TAPER consists of, it provides information on the district STAR academic performance, the district STAR test participation, and then the third section talks about the district's attendance and post-secondary readiness. And the final section is the district's profile. That's where we would find information about student, teacher, and program demographics. Tonight, what I'm going to highlight is actually in the post-secondary readiness section, the third section. You'll find what I'm going to go over on pages 14 through 17, so I'll give you a minute to get to that information. I'm not going to go over every single indicator because I definitely don't want to keep you longer than necessary. But what I am going to do is I'll have it highlighted on your screens where I'm going to start. So on page 14, towards the bottom, I'm going to start with the advanced course dual credit course completion. This is for our grades 9 through 12. This percentage is for students who complete at least one advanced or dual course credit. So when we look at it, what we're actually looking at is we're looking at an increase in any subject. The subjects are ELA, math, science, and social studies. So we're looking at an increase from 19.7 to 23.7. And in English language arts, we're looking at a small increase of 8% to 8.1%. In math, we are looking at 12.7, we dropped to 11.4, but I'd like to point out that both the region and the state also dropped, so we're seeing that about the repeats and how we still are catching up on that. In science, we did drop from 1.3 to 9.9%, and in social studies, we saw an increase from 10.7% to 11.6%. We know there's still a lot of work to go, but we are going to celebrate the small increases that we've had and continuing, and kudos to the high school for the rigor they continue to implement. Going on to page 15, because that science and social studies actually carried over to the next page, if you would turn to page 15. I'm going to start with the indicator, the class of 2016, the college and career ready graduates. Well, this one is college ready graduates. What we're looking at when we're discussing college ready graduates is we're looking for students that meet or exceed the college ready criteria for either the TSI assessment, the SAT, or the ACT. So when we're looking at those percentages, we are very happy to report that we've seen increases in all of the areas. In English language arts, math, in both subjects, that's for students who actually met or exceeded in both ELA and math. And then when we're combining them all together for either subject, we also saw an increase. Again, we know there's still work to do, but considering the board goals, we're well on track of taking those incremental steps necessary. Moving on to college and career ready graduates, that's the one right below the indicators, right below that. Sounds similar, but it's a little bit different because you qualify for this in one of three ways. You either meet that TSI requirement, which is a college, is an assessment for college level courses that they have passed, but in this one, in order to qualify, you have to pass both the math and the ELA reading. Or you can also complete and earn credit for at least 2 dual advanced dual credit courses, or you are maybe enrolled in a CTE or career and technical education courses as part of a 4-year plan. And those 4-year plans is when a student is going to take 2 or more courses that are 3 or more hours credit. So looking at that, again, we're very proud to say that we also increased. And this one is our woohoo moment because we went from 54.1% to 73%, which I am will pass that along to the high school because they're the ones who actually have the kudos for that. So now I'm actually going to go down below that to the TSI, the Texas Success Initiative Assessment. What the TSI is, like I was saying earlier, is this is the test that will determine whether students are able to take college level courses, those entry level courses. This means that they don't have to take the remediation course, what we would call the basic course 101 when I, many moons ago, was in college. So when we're looking at that, again, we're very proud to show that on ELA, we increased, we more than doubled from 12.8 to 28.2. And not only that, but we surpassed both the region and the state percentages. And then for math, again, more than doubled from 5.3 to 14%. Now we're moving on to page 16. If you would turn the page, please. I'm going to start with the top indicator, the CTE coherent sequence. The CTE, of course, our career and technical education. Like I said before, it's part of a 4-year plan. This is important because this is a course of study which develops occupational knowledge and skills and its competencies. It is part of a 4-year plan where students will be taking 2 or more classes that are 3-hour courses. Looking at that, again, we increased from 39.1% to 56.8%, which again, the high school is just knocking it out of the park. And we once again surpassed both the region and the state percentages on this. Now, at the bottom of that page, I'm dropping down to the SAT, ACT results. This first indicator, even though it has the word results on it, is actually the number tested. So what I want to show you on this is how much we've increased our participation. We went from 48.1% to 87.6%. And yes, both the region and state both did increase as well, but we're above that. What that's telling our students is that we're not just going to test the top 10 or a certain percentage or those in dual credit or AP courses. We're going to introduce everyone to the college entry exams. And with that, I'm going to go over some of our average scores for both the SAT and ACT. I'm going to start with the SAT scores. And as you can see, for our district, we did show, when we look at all subjects, we did show a drop in all subjects, ELA and math. I'd like to point out that we also saw a drop in region and state. That goes back, if you remember, about that increase in participation. When you start opening the test up to everyone, then you run the risk of the average scores lowering, which is the risk we're willing to take because we're not going to exclude any student from having the chance of being able to take this test and see where he or she might need to go for college entry. Our average ACT scores, we did see a drop in some areas here. In our all subjects, we dropped a little from 8.2 to 17.9. Again, in ELA from 17.4 to 17. We saw a small increase in math from 18.4 to 18.6, and then we stayed the same in science at an 18.9%. We still have work to do, and we're aware of that, and the high school is working vigorously on it, but I'm very happy to see how close we are to both the region and state percentages with scores. And then finally, what I'm going to end with is actually our enrollment in Texas Institute of Higher Education. I love ending on this one because not only did we see an increase from 47.8% to 49%, not only did we see that increase, but we saw a decrease in both the region and the state. So even though we're not right up to par with them, we increased our enrollment in the Institutes of Higher Education, and the region and states both saw a drop. This actually is for the following year right after graduation, that next school year, if a student actually enrolled. And this takes in both the four-year and junior colleges. Okay, so any questions, comments?
Board members, I'm going to open up the floor. Mrs. Flores, go ahead.
Yes. I understand the SAT, ACT results, the number of students tested, that we're testing more students, we're giving them that opportunity to test, and that's the big jump there. However, how is the district going to address the at or above criterion results for a lot of these students that are being tested, that frankly, we've dropped a lot? Because we are testing more.
We're testing everyone, actually.
Okay, so how
We're
is it?
testing the entire, we pay for the entire, all 10th graders to take the PSAT and all 11th graders to take the SAT.
Okay, I understand that, but how is the district going to address preparing these students to take this test so that the at and above criterion percentage is more in line with going up instead of going down?
Well, I would say that the same thing that we've been discussing since y'all have set the expectation of our board goals in level 3. It's about getting more students before they come to high school scoring in that level 3, in that advanced level area. Thanks to y'all's leadership, it has just been, that expectation has been set. Even though that was set recently, I know the high school has really put a focus on higher order thinking, on questioning. I know Dr. Hernandez is here if he needs to go into depth on the professional development that he has led. I believe we've shared the cognitive rigor matrix with the board. And so these are things that we have put into place. It's going to take a minute for it to hit, and for us to see the results. This is results from, I believe, years ago. Right, so we're expecting to see increases, but the good thing is that all students are attempting and taking the SAT. And regardless, when you take the SAT, as most of us know, scores go to colleges. The College Board sends those out, and so maybe they didn't think they could qualify for maybe a UT or an A&M or a small school. Maybe they didn't think college was even for them, but because they're taking it, now maybe some, schools reach out to them if they have those opportunities. And so that's what's been very helpful with us insisting that all 11th graders take the SAT.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, is the district or is the high school doing anything to offer SAT or ACT prep? Say as extra course after school, that sort of thing, because not all, a lot of kids, if all the kids are testing, then how are we prepping them?
Do you want to address that, Dr. Hernandez?
Yes,
We also have this counseling team.
Madam President, members of the board. Yes, actually, we've been in strong conversations as we start our master calendar, our master schedule, I guess, for next school year. We've already had discussions of implementing some SAT, ACT prep courses within the day so that students that have extra space in their schedules are able to take those types of courses. We will also be offering, in fact, our valedictorian stepped up and got a team of teachers together and his peers together, because they're going to start tutoring sessions coming next month for their peers as the March date is approaching us pretty quickly for the SAT. So we may also see some discrepancies next year, just FYI. The SAT and ACT changed in 2017, so it's a different test. So that may look a little differently, so we've got to prep them for that as well. We also have a partnership with UTSA, so some of our students go out to UTSA on the Saturdays for their prep courses. We've also been in conversation with Texas A&M San Antonio, as well as Palo Alto, so we're creating partnerships with the higher ed in order for them to help us prep our kiddos for whatever it is they need to be prepared and exposed to those tests before they actually take them. But when you do test everyone, you do run, that stat comes in, that quantitative stat comes in a little different because you're averaging in some different scores. And so it is in convincing our students to believe in themselves, also understanding those kids that have convinced themselves they're not college bound, we deal with those results as well. So it's kind of a little mixed bag, but the fact that we still stay fairly close in comparison to the state and the region, that's huge considering we're testing everybody and not all schools do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Louder?
Before you sit down, sir, I was trying to catch you, sorry. I just, so since we're on the subject of ACT and testing more kids, where do the counselors come in? Are we gearing up the counselors to be able to talk to these children about possible new opportunities or what that test means? Do we have enough counselors at the high school to be able to tackle all this?
That's a loaded question, sir. We do. We have class meetings. Every quarter we have class meetings, so we're in constant conversation with the students and letting them know. Ms. Melendez, our counseling department, we now have a dual credit facilitator as well, and then our early college directors here. They do an outstanding job of informing students of what their options are. I'm a realist, so I firmly understand that not everyone's going to go to college, but everyone should have the opportunity to. So we're going to expose everybody on all levels to everything so that students can make the best decision of what they think they're going to do in the futures. But we do definitely push the higher ed, even if it is an industry, even if they want to go straight into work, we do talk to them about an associate's in applied science. There's also 22 schools in Texas, universities that offer a bachelor's in applied science. So there's no reason to stop the education. It's just a matter of finding the right fit for each of the students so that they get what it is they need for whatever it is they want to pursue.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
I'm going to stick around right here.
Mrs. Brown?
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, I'm glad to see that we're testing now the 10th and 11th graders as well, because that gives them more opportunities to succeed in this test. Are they limited to the number of times that they can be tested for SAT and ACT?
That'd be a great question for, we don't limit them. They can take it as many times as they want. Now, there are certain waiver requirements or waiver parameters depending on incomes and things of that nature, but we definitely, as a campus, we test them. They take the PSAT their sophomore year, so they're exposed to it. Then they'll take the PSAT again their junior year because that's the national merit opportunity, and then we test them on the SAT their senior year. So they actually see it 3 times, and we pay for those 3 administrations.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
We're funding, we pay for those tests. If they have to take it a second time, do we pay for that as well?
It depends on their qualifications. There are some waiver opportunities for students who take the SAT, and if not, then no, they would pay. Some of them get discounted rates as well, and if not, we pay for the first administration. We have to pay for a second.
And also you mentioned that you're going to have an ACT, SAT prep, hopefully for these students that are going to be taking them. Is the prep only available to the 10th and 11th graders? Is there, because now they're taking them as a 10th grade as opposed to waiting from 11th to 12th, is this something as a prep that we can offer 9th graders?
Due to their schedules, probably not. The PSAT and SAT exams are really junior and senior level based. So what we attempt to do is to provide the SAT, or not the SAT, but SAT, ACT prep to juniors who have room in their schedules, and because we're on a block schedule, it affords more opportunity for them to be able to do that. Also, seniors, the SAT, that's the one that counts to get into the university. So that one's more intensive and more preparatory as far as getting them ready to take the actual SAT that's going to get them into the university or the institution of their choice.
I guess the reason I ask is because now that we have our college, high school, we are now allowing our 8th graders to choose a career path or a college path to lead them into a degree when they graduate. So if we can somehow, if it's, I don't know if we can or not, also give them that little push to say, okay, once you get into the 10th grade or 9th grade, this is the path you've chosen for college, but we also have to prepare you for the tests that you're going to be taking. Because the 8th graders, they really don't take anything.
Right.
All they're going to do is have a choice of college, what they want to do.
So,
But if we could give them that little edge, you know, as a 9th grader and offer
It's something we absolutely can look at, offering our, even our middle school kids, now that I think about it, now that you bring that up. It's something that we can at least have, to see what we can do at the middle school level. I think that's an excellent idea now.
Because I think even when they chose that career path for a college degree, that first year is pretty easy. I don't think they get many courses that are really hard. It's mostly like an elective type. But once they go into the 9th, 10th grade, then it gets harder. And I think anything we can do to give them that extra help to get them to pass these tests would be good.
We'll look at that for sure. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Mrs. Guerra?
And all this looks very promising, very good job on all the scores and everything. And for the valedictorian being proactive in helping, getting that group to help the 11th and 12th graders. And I was agreeing, I had the same question as Ms. Brano. Maybe we could help, just like we're doing, like the valedictorian and the teachers are doing, if we could do something with the freshmen and sophomores.
yeah, and hopefully, I have a ton of confidence in our teachers and the level of rigor which we're instructing our students at this point. So really, the SAT prep courses are more strategy-based, which is definitely something, if we can even incorporate that through natural classes. But I think what we're doing and how our students are performing right now, and the expectations we have instructionally, should naturally prepare them to take these exams when they do have to take them. But definitely want to try to expose them and give them as much edge as possible moving forward. So how we do that, unfortunately, when you do a prep course, it's limited to a student schedule or availability. So I want to see, in working with Charlie, working with Charlie, that we look at how we can incorporate it potentially through some of our regular courses, core content courses, possibly, just to see if we can get some exposure at that level as well. But we're going to do everything we can to try to give them the best opportunity possible.
Thank you.
So I have a question or a comment. Are we utilizing any software that, for instance, my daughter was valedictorian and she didn't score high enough in her SAT. So we bought a software program. It was very, very expensive because the chances of them taking it the second time and increasing their score is very limited because they're going to pretty much score the same. She was able to increase her points by 10 points, which is pretty dramatic. But are we instituting any software to build on what they already know, not necessarily cover what they do know?
When the students register for SAT or ACT, they're automatically enrolled in Khan Academy, and they have access to that from the first time that they enroll on the College Board's website.
Okay, so this is something that can be done outside of their regular work?
Right, and what that is basically they get a report of their strengths and their weaknesses, and based on that, they can get, and this is free, a 10-minute tutorial or 15-minute tutorial every single night to keep their skills sharp. And as they get better, then it adjusts to them. So that's available for all students who take the PSAT and SAT.
Okay, and are we tracking that they're utilizing it, or is it just up to them?
That's something that
I don't believe we as a district have the access to track.
Is it through College Board?
So you can build a classroom.
Go ahead, Sophie.
So you can build a classroom with Khan Academy, so it's just us instituting that with our teachers, but our teachers can create a classroom in Khan Academy and they can track student progress. It's just something that we would have to look at instituting within our district. But yes, our teachers can track students through Khan and build a poll and even make it a contest. They can do whatever they want with Khan.
I would want to encourage that one because that is one of our student outcome goals, is to track college readiness. And so any way that we can meet those goals sooner than later would be a benefit too.
So you asked if I had enough people?
So I know that in other areas, we didn't fare so well.
Before we go to the negative, one thing we didn't share that, if y'all see at the bottom of page 17, completing 1 year without remediation, in 13-14, we had almost 50% of our students that were in college take a remediation course. That dropped to 24.3%. So just want to let that one. So that's really amazing that we're showing evidence of college readiness. So yes, ma'am, to your concerns.
So I know you said this is in the rears, and I know we're monitoring steadily this year as to improve our scores. So based on the information that we received, how do you feel we're inching closer to our goals that we've set? Do you feel that, are you confident that we are having gains?
For the post-secondary readiness, yes. Yes, I am very confident. I think our CTE course sequence, the counseling staff that he's put on board, how we're tracking, to make sure that students are supported in dual credit and AP, and I can, let Dr. Hernandez speak for himself, but I believe our goal, our baseline was 68%, and we're supposed to get up to, because our baseline was 68%, and I think I want to say 80, but I don't want to. Is it 80? I think our first year is 80 without me being able to, still on board book. So I'm very confident that we're going to be achieving that goal. Okay. Is it 85? Is that it? Okay. Thank you. So yes.
Okay, are there any more follow-up, Mr. Bobby?
I just had one general question on the taper. Well, I guess it's just overall performance. So if we took these numbers and how we scored math, reading, and we applied it to the new system that possibly the state is going to go to, which is A through F, where would we be? How many campuses do you think we'd be at, and generally speaking right now, I wouldn't hold you to it, how many would be fitting that in that right now?
All we know right now is the formulas for domain 1. Am I correct? So there's 3 domains, domain 1, 2, and 3. And then domain 4 is supposed to be a local accountability where we, through SGS, we do our own school performance framework. Based on just domain 1,
as far as our campuses go, we're probably going to be, if we use the same scores as right now, they'll be Ds and a few Fs. And I think maybe 1 C.
That's because it's working off of that first section of the STAR participation. Now, for the high school, there will be some post-secondary readiness
In Domain 1.
In Domain 1, but those exact percentages.
Right.
we don't have.
Right, and we don't know how they're weighting because now instead of Domain 4 used to be post-secondary, now that's all going to go into Domain for the high school, Domain 1 for the high school. We don't know yet how they're weighting it, how much that's going to be compared to the end of course exam. So we're kind of going off of worst case scenario. Our last principals meeting in December, as we prepared our principals for mid-years, we did do a simulation of if we took it right now with A through F, where your campus is going to be. They've adjusted, and all we can go off is of what TA has given us, and the only formula they've given us is Domain 1. So even though Domain 2 is about growth and closing the gap, which we tend to do very well in, but we did adjust our action plans in response to how they would do in Domain 1. They've adjusted their goals, and we're meeting now with them, with every principal, to monitor their progress towards that. So even though they have 1 more year under this current accountability, as far as we're concerned, we're looking at A through F.
And what we'll be working on is really in-house, because even though only the district will receive an A through F rating this coming accountability period, there is not going to be a what-if report like there was the last year. So we're looking at that. The good thing also, though, is that it's going to be Domain 1 or Domain 2, kind of like what the old accountability system was. So we've discussed before how it's hard when you're already achieving at a higher level to show growth, but for the campuses that are scoring a little bit lower, they have that opportunity to use Domain 2 instead by showing growth, which we're showing in.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted that.
Great question. So, there's no more questions from the board. So as thank you Denise, thank you Dr. Hernandez. As Mr. Balderrama and Ms. Silva of the board, I'd like to share the questions that Ms. Prado has posed to Dr. Saavedra. So her questions are, as you know, the U.S. Department of Education released their findings on special education for Texas. Governor Abbott has directed the Texas Education Agency to come up with a plan to correct the problem areas. Commissioner Morath indicated that the TA would develop a plan within several days. So the letter to Mr. Morath was dated on January 11th, and he was given a directive for 7 days to come up with a plan. That will be released tomorrow. The 7th day is January 18th. Her question was, has TEA released that plan? If not, do we know when it will be released? January 18th is all I can assume, because the directive he gave to Commissioner Morath was 7 days. Will the board be advised if the TA plan affects our school district? Yes. Will the board be advised how you and the staff will modify the district target improvement plan to reflect the state's plan if appropriate? Absolutely. Now, the plan that we're sharing with you, what the state had was this 8.5% cap. This is not why our issue is instructing special ed students and their exposure to rigor. That's the reason why we are staged, not because we never capped, we never saw, in fact, we exceeded it, I believe, in our identification of special ed students. So what's happening at the state is not the reason why we are staged. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Balderrama and Ms. Silva to go over our PPMOS report on how special ed is monitored.
Good evening, members of the board. PPMOS stands for Performance-Based Monitoring Analysis System. As you can see, there are 5 areas that are monitored, but tonight's report will focus strictly on special education. Regarding the staging history of PPMOS, special education is currently at stage 4, with 1 being the best and obviously 4 needing improvement. Ms. Silva, our Director of Special Ed, will now address those areas of need, and I'll be here to answer questions.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to discuss is the components that are the result of our staging. And so there's 2 areas. There's the instruction part and then there's the compliance part. And under the instruction, there's those indicators, and then compliance, we have the other indicators. Okay? So for our indicator 1, this is our special education STAR passing rate for grades 3 through 8. So I gave you the 3 years worth of data, and let's just look at math. If you look at math for 2017, there it is, okay. So we had 349 students tested. Out of the 349 students tested, we had 134 of those students passed or meet the expectations. The red number at the bottom, the 245, that's the number that we need in order for us not to be staged. Okay? So because as a result of that, that's where we get the performance level 3. Okay? And so that's all the reading, science, and all the way down to all the subject areas. For indicator 2 talks about the year after exit from special education. So we still have to monitor our students after they have been exited from special ed. Okay, so again, there's the 3 years worth of data. In 2017, again, we had 23 students that we exited out of special ed. Out of the 23 students, 12 of them passed. We needed 17 to pass in order for us to not be staged. And then the only area we got hit on here was reading. All the other areas were fine. In indicator 3, this one is our special education STAR end of course passing rate. Again, 3 years worth of data. We'll look at math. For 2017, we had 69 students tested. Out of the 69 students tested, 32 passed. We needed 45 not to be staged. Okay. So all of these indicators deal strictly with instruction. So the next one is our target improvement plan. This one here this is the target improvement plan that we submitted to TEA. Okay. So next indicator is indicator 4. This is our STAR alt participation rate. These are the students that take an alternate assessment other than the regular STAR. Okay. And if you look at this data, and we look at 2017, we had 396 students. 81 of those students took the STAR alt, but in order for us not to be staged, it only allowed for 40 students to take the STAR alt. And then with the STAR alt, we have a specific target improvement plan that we submitted to TEA specifically to address STAR alt. The next indicator 5 and 6, both of these talk about our access to general education setting. The indicator 5 is our early childhood, and those are the ages 3 to 5. And then the indicator 6 is ages 6 to 21. Now, for whatever reason, these numbers here for 2017, they were masked. That's how we got the PBMOS submitted to us. They didn't give us the numbers. But they did stage us in stage 2, okay, for both those areas. I will point out in 2015, that year they would break it up by 6 through 11 and 12 through 21. That was the last year they did it like that, which is why the rest of the year it's all grouped together. Okay. Then we have a specific target improvement plan, activities that we submitted just for the general education access, putting our kids into the general ed setting and giving them more opportunities. And the last two is our indicator 9 is our annual dropout rate. If you look at 2017, we had 370 students enrolled. That's enrolled in grades 7 through 12. They track it from 7th grade to 12th grade. Out of those grade levels, we had 13 students that dropped out. And our number needed to be at 7 in order for us not to be staged. For indicator 10, this was our increase in special education graduation rate. This goes to the 2015-16, we're a year behind. I'm sorry, a couple years behind. So we had 52 students in that graduating class. We had 35 graduated, I'm sorry, we had 52 special ed students, 35 of them graduated. We needed 42 to not be staged. And this, yes, and this is our students that graduated within their cohort. Because now they track it by cohort, before they didn't used to. So if they graduated, you know, we used to, if they could do it in 5 years and they graduated, that was wonderful. But now, if they don't graduate within their cohort, that's where that indicator comes in. So now we need to make sure that all of our kids are graduating within the 4 years with their cohort, even our life skills students. We've got to get them to walk the stage and graduate. They can still come back, but we've got to show that they graduated. Okay? Then this is our target improvement plan, and this is specifically for our dropout rate and our graduation rate because they do kind of go together. And this is what we submitted to TEA. Any questions?
Board members, do you have any comments, concerns, or questions? The floor is open. Mrs. Prado?
Thank you, Ms. Ostian. Thank you for the presentation. It's very detailed. I just have a couple of questions and comments. When you speak about the stages, I'm assuming you're referencing on page 57, it gives us special education determination statuses, and there's 4. One is meets requirement, second is needs assistant, and then the third is need intervention, and the fourth is needs substantial intervention. So I'm assuming that the chart on page 68, the staging, that's what that reflects. So if it's a 1, that means that we've met the requirement.
Yes.
But if it's a 4, which is the rating we got this year, that means that we need substantial intervention. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I know that you've already started working on the plan, on your target plan, and I think that's excellent. And one of my questions that you answered, Ms. Castro, are you going to implement whatever the commissioner might have also in his plan into your target improvement plan as well? And the only other thing I have is, I think we're aware that the feds in the report, they claim that the national norm for special ed students in a district is 12%. Our rating was, I think, 8.1% this year. So there's a 4% difference there. So are we making sure that we are identifying and that we're doing ours to make sure that none of these kids are falling through the cracks? That we're doing what we need to do to make sure that if there's a child that needs special ed services, that they're given the art and they're being identified, and that that has nothing to do with the 8.1. Because we don't want these children, I mean, you know, we've been real diligent about trying to get all our kids college ready and make sure they're career ready, but let's not forget our special population, which is our special education students. Because as you stated, now they have to graduate with their cohorts, so that means you're going to be even more vigilant, and you have to keep track of those kids and make sure that we're giving them what they need, the services that they need. And I just want to make sure, and that was my biggest concern when I saw the 8.1, especially when the feds are saying we should be at 12%. So there's 4% there that we're not quite at. So is there anything we're going to do to make sure that these kids are not, somewhere have fallen astray and we just didn't get them tested? Because I also understand that the RTI is prohibited, that districts cannot use RTI anymore, that those kids must be serviced, which is the, and I can't remember the acronym, but there are RTI classes that some of the districts do for kids where they assess them before they give them the special ed services that they need. They kind of put them like in a holding area to decide whether or not.
Resource.
Absolutely.
Right. No, ma'am. And we've been very diligent in identifying based on data.
Okay.
We've responded to, in fact, our special ed population has increased.
Yes, and that's what I was going to
In the
say.
past, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's probably not at the 8.1% anymore, it's probably because our special ed population is increasing. So in October snapshot, our number now is 837 of special ed students. So if we know what our enrollment is for our total students, then that'll give us the percentage.
It's almost 10%.
Yeah, it's almost 10%.
Because the 8.1% only reflects about 700 students
Correct.
based on our enrollment.
Correct.
So you said it's gone up to
Yes, ma'am.
837.
Yes, just from last year's snapshot date to this year, we've increased almost 60 students.
And we've been increasing every year.
And we have been increasing every year for the past, when I started tracking in 2014, so every year we have increased our numbers. And we continue, and so we are getting a lot more parent requests, and so if a parent requests special ed testing, we do it.
I'm glad to hear that because, I hate to see any child fall through the cracks and not get the services that they need to have. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are there any other comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, discussion is now closed. Thank you. We're now going to consent items. Policy B, local states, the consent agenda shall include items of a routine and recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion, unless a board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote. So we have 3 consent items. Do I hear any board members wanting to pull?
Madam Chair, number 3.
Okay, number 3 will be pulled. Anybody else? All right, so do I hear a motion to approve consent items number 1, A and B, and number 2?
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
There's been a motion made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Number 3, Mrs. Bravo.
Thank you.
Well, let me read the
Yes,
consent. To approve the renewal of the New York Risk Services Group as the third-party administrator for the district's self-insured workers' compensation services. Mrs. Bravo.
Thank you. This item was tabled at our last meeting. There was not a representative here from York at that time, and I asked that maybe the representative be here to answer questions. Dr. Saavedra, did you-
Well, this is two different issues. This has not come to the board before. What got tabled was the insurance consultant contract. This is not the insurance consultant.
Okay, so it's not, we're not going to act on the insurance consultant?
Not at this meeting.
Not at this
Okay.
point, right.
All right, but I do have, since this does have to do with workman's comp, I do have questions on that. On the contract.
Wait a minute, do we have a representative? Yes, we do.
Yeah, there's-
That was
we have one.
Claudia. Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I
Sure.
appreciate that. In your contract, I know it says that there's a flat fee, and that is $37,695. But if you look at you've got a list of services that you provide, and it also shows the cost. So is it my understanding then that if we don't go with a flat fee, we will be charged based on the costs that you have listed here?
No, ma'am, I believe the flat fee is for the adjusting of the claims. There are additional services, depending on the nature of the injury in a workers' comp claim, that might need to be done, and those are allocated to a claim file, but we provide those services as well, and they don't go on every claim. So we give a list of those services as well. So those would be additional services based on the nature of injuries if needed.
So it's additional cost. So we're actually paying the flat fee plus, if any of these things arise, then there's a fee for that as well.
Well, and if you wouldn't mind giving me an example on that? Just so I
You've
can-
got here indemnity claims, a cost of $1,149.
No, the flat fee includes the indemnity claim, the medical only claims,
Oh, okay.
and all the services. What I was talking about is more like medical bill review, pre-authorization, when you have to get a doctor's pre-authorization for treatment,
Okay.
things of those nature.
And then you also have telephonic case management, $95 an hour.
Yes, that would be an additional
An additional
cost.
cost, okay. So
Yes.
some of these are additional costs, it's not just a flat fee that was
Yeah,
proposed.
the flat fee covers the administration of the claim from start to finish, but if something additional needs to be done, like the telephonic case management, if it's a problem claim that needs to have telephonic case management on it, we would do that. And if it's telephonic case management and the claim gets worse, we would task that out to a field case nurse manager to make sure that she went to the appointment with the employee, made sure that they got the appointment. The ultimate goal is to get them back to work as quick as possible.
Absolutely.
So,
Do we know how many workman comp claims we have currently pending?
currently, what I can do is I can give you some numbers from 2017 to kind of, so from an, 2016, from an indemnity standpoint, we had 24 indemnity claims and 87 medical only claims.
And that's for last year, for 16.
That was for 16. For 17, I'm showing 14 indemnity claims or lost time claims and 81 medical only claims.
That's a large number. And so I guess my question maybe is for administration, or maybe for you. What are we doing on these people that are out on medical leave and are claiming workman's comp to get them to come back, even if it's part-time basis or something, light work or something, because it's costing us a lot of money that we're paying them and not being here.
Right. So we, when we get the notice that the DWIGS that comes back from the doctor when they have the workers' comp injury and it tells us if they have restrictions, we get with the supervisor of that individual to see if they can be accommodated. So we work with the supervisors to get them accommodated, because as he said, the sooner they come back, the quicker they get better. So we do work with the supervisor. Now, there's things that, just depends on the injury, and that will depend on whether or not we're able to accommodate them.
I see. Okay, 'cause I think that's the key, is hurry up and get them back to work. Okay, it looks like for some reason we seem to continue to have a lot of medical claims. Are these people that are workman's comp, and maybe you might answer that, are they on FMLA as well?
Yes, so it does work concurrently. So yes, but and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not an expert in this area, but the workers' comp claims are for life. The injury claims for the doctor, when they get injured if
Well, until the claim the claim is closed down. So the medical claims, what we try to do is to keep them from becoming a indemnity or lost time claim. Because once they're lost time, then you're paying secondary injury benefits and you're having to backfill that person at work. So we try to keep them from going lost time. But the ultimate goal is to get them back on a return to work program. Maybe it's not full duty, but if you return them to work, then that's the goal of closing the claim down.
Absolutely. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have on this.
Yeah, I'm trying to abide the 2-minute rule.
Yeah, that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Okay. Mr. Ibarra, y'all can please come back to the podium.
Sir, if you don't mind, how many people do you administer these services for? How many districts?
Well, to give you an idea about York, depending on if you're talking about Texas or nationwide, we are the...
Well, I just wanted you to say in general, like how many would you be familiar with right now to answer a question on that I'm about to ask you?
I would say in Texas, we do about 130 or so.
And our size district?
Yeah, it ranges back and forth.
So our claims that you just said that we had, are those abnormal to a district our size, or is that about average of what you see?
Yeah, I would say it's about average.
So it's nothing out of the ordinary that we're facing right now as far as our claims?
Not at all, not at all. We hope we wouldn't have to exist, but unfortunately, people do get injured at work, and we have to try to get them back to work as quick as possible.
No, yeah, of course. I just wanted to see if there was something abnormal about the claims that we have compared to other districts that you're familiar with that are our size.
No, it's about average. And your mix between lost time claims and medical only claims is about right as well. You have fewer lost time claims. And just to kind of give you an idea, just some additional information, we actually dropped our fees this time from 2011 because your incidence rates have gone down. So, which is not the norm. Typically, you would see an increase in salaries.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Dean, I'm sorry. Can I have a follow-up question?
I think at this time, we've exhausted our time.
Okay.
Okay. These were consent items, so I believe questions should have been submitted prior, and so some of those should have been answered already. And I think we have enough information to make a motion and have a decision on a vote. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept consent item number 3.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, we're now on to discussion and possible action. Number 1, discussion and possible action to select interview applicants for the school board vacancies in single-member districts 3 and 6. And I believe the, do have any, I'd like to open it up for discussion. Is there any discussion to be made? Okay, I think council has the motion to be read.
Yes, Madam Board President, members of the board, Dr. Saavedra, the board discussed this issue in executive session as allowed by 551.074. And based on that discussion, the advice of council is for the board to adopt an action to extend the application deadline by 1 week until 24th of January to conduct the first round interviews on January 25th with the possibility of a second round of interviews on that very same day. For the interviews of the selected candidates to be conducted all or in part in open session. Also for a citizens to be heard portion of the citizens to be heard item to be added to that agenda for that meeting. In addition, for the board to reserve the option to appoint individuals that are interviewed once that process has begun, which would be on the 24th.
Okay, I so move that motion. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, motion has been made by Mrs. Ostergein, seconded by Mrs. Guerra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, so number 2, discussion and possible action to approve the quarterly progress tracker. So on your seats by your desk, you were given some copies that we're going to be going over. One of the things I'd like for you to look at is page 40 of the Lone Star Governance. And we are going to be utilizing page 50 of the Lone Star Governance as well. So in your agenda was given what we assessed ourselves last quarter on October the 18th. So we're going to go through this and we're going to grade ourselves as to what we give ourselves this quarter, and similar to what we did on October 18th. Okay, so the first one is Vision 1. It is the board works collaboratively with the superintendent to develop the vision and student outcome goals. So previously we had given ourselves a number 12. Do we feel that we have improved to a 15? So we read the master focus and we will have to complete all that in order to give ourselves a 15.
Question.
Yes.
Should we start at 1 and then just go down?
Sure. So we'll
So
start with you.
I think we're at 12.
Okay, so you pick a 12. Mrs. Flores?
Yes, we're at 12.
I say we're at 12.
Same, 12.
Mrs. Brother?
12.
All right, so let's give ourselves a number 12 on page 50 for that. All right, so next one, Vision 2. The board has adopted goal progress measures, GPMs, aligned to each student outcome goal. So on Vision 2, we scored a number 4 last time, and so in order to receive a 12, we would have to meet all those paragraphs. So go ahead and read those and see if we can give ourselves a 12. Okay, what do y'all think? Let's start in on the other end, Mrs. Prado,
I say it's a 12.
Ms. Guerra.
Same.
I do too. Mrs. Flores?
I have a question for Dr. Saavedra. Dr. Saavedra, it indicates there that the goal is, let's see, influenceable suggests that the superintendent has authority over roughly 80% of whatever the progress measure is measuring. Are you confident that you've had 80%? Okay, then we're at 12.
Okay, Mr. Ibarra?
12.
Good, so let's give ourselves a 12. All right, so the next one is Vision 3. The board has adopted a vision for what student outcomes will be and has adopted constraints aligned with that vision. So the past quarter, we were at a number 3. And let me refresh your memory. The reason why we were at a 3 was because we did not self-evaluate each month our constraints. And so with that said, I think we're still at a 3. But Mr. Ibarra, we can go ahead and read that section and see if we've moved up or are we at a 3?
I feel like we're at a 3. I don't think we've moved to 9 yet. We have adopted self-constraints, but I don't think that we practice all of those yet.
Mrs. Waters?
I agree, I think we're at a 3.
Okay. I said 3, only because that on that second paragraph on number where it means focus, it says separate from the constraints on the superintendent's authority, the board has adopted 3 to 5 self-constraints. We did that on its own behavior and self-evaluates against one of them each month. And so we're not meeting that. And so hopefully starting with our next meetings, we will do that. Okay, Mrs. Guerra, what is your answer?
I agree, 3.
Okay, Mrs. Prado?
3.
Okay, so the answer, the score for Vision 3 is a number 3. Vision 4. The board has adopted constraint progress measures aligned to each constraint. So on Vision 4, last time we were at 0.5. And if we want to read number 1 to see if we have moved.
I think we're at a 4.
At a 4?
I think we're at 4.
Okay, we're at meets focus?
Meets focus.
All right, I'll answer to that in just a bit. Mrs. Flores?
I haven't finished reading, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. So let me kind of re-jog your memory. We have not developed annual targets for the CPMs. That was something that we were cited on, that was suggested the last quarter. And so if we look at our CPMs, we have the 3 to 5 year range, but we don't have yearly targets. And so that hasn't been done or discussed.
For the goal?
The constraints.
Okay.
And so that was something, I did email you, Dr. Saavedra, that was something that I wanted to tackle, because that's 80% y'all with 20% of our input. Okay?
So
We've
we're at
met every
number
one
one?
of those except for that last one.
For that last one.
So we're at a 0.5 still.
We're not even at approaches?
We're not at.
We're not at number 1 because we haven't met that
Oh,
last
that's right,
one.
that's right, yeah, you're right.
We have to meet all of them in order to move.
Yeah.
0.5.
0.5. Okay, on accountability 1, the board invests at least half of its time focusing on its vision and student outcome goals. So last time, we were at a 0. And so, go ahead and read the does not need focus, and do you think we've moved?
think we're still at 0.
Yeah, we don't,
Yes, and the only reason I think we're still at 0, because if you look at the first heading, it says annual targets. We don't have annual targets for CPMs yet. But also I wanted to note to staff that on the monitoring calendar, when I reviewed the video from October 18th, it was suggested that we have a 24-month. We have a 23-month. It is from July 2017 to, it starts August 2017 and it ends July 2019.
So,
Is it 24? Because I thought it's August to August.
No, because August to August would be 25.
so that's 21.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure, yeah, right?
But it'd be like January to December is 12, not January to January.
Okay, so then I'm wrong. I don't know how to add. So good. Okay, so then we meet the second one, and then the third one we meet is just that annual targets on our CPMs, which hasn't gotten us out of the 0. And we will tackle that, believe me, this quarter. So on accountability 1, I give us, does everybody agree with 0? Yes, okay. All right. We're now on accountability number 2. The board measures and communicates but does not interfere in progress towards the vision and student. So last time we gave ourselves a 0. And so let's go ahead and read those to see if we moved out of it.
Is this kind of pertaining to the school performance report that we're supposed to be developing so that we know each individual campus and how they're performing?
Let's see.
Because we haven't created a school performance rating system yet, right?
You mean the school performance framework? The school performance framework? No, that's being, that work is beginning in February.
I think this is talking specifically about how we could identify a low-performing campus. I know there's other ways, but through that tool, I think, is what SGS wants us to use to
That's correct.
kind of identify.
But does that apply for this one as well? I'm still reading.
Well, if you look at the second paragraph, it says any individual board member does not know whether or not there are low-performing campuses, and if there are, how many. So I think if, when we establish the school performance framework,
Then
we would know which of our campuses are low and how many. Because currently, I can't answer that.
When we give out
None of our
the,
schools, we have, not all of our schools have met standard. We reported on that, and then we report every month, how we're working towards our progress. So that's how I interpreted it as of right now, all we can go off of is what the state accountability measures us, and
But that's the past. I'm looking at, do we know how to prepare for the future? Do we know the future?
And again, this is under, your direction, but when we don't have a school performance framework, other than what the state has given us,
that's why we have.
I don't think it's, right, which we're developing our own, that's what SGS is for, we've been, with our costs, and we're developing our own, and that work starts in February. And again, this is, but based on our current account, all we can go off of is what we know now, which is we're accountable from what the state tells us, and I believe every board member on the dais knows that the state of our schools and that all of them have that standard. So that's why I would argue, again, I'm not, that we're beyond a 0. But if, at the pleasure of the board, if y'all interpret that, because it's going to be a 0 until the SPF is created, and that's a very lengthy process. We're starting with focus groups in February 13th, then going into our design, and then we have create. It's about a 5-day, and then it has to come to the board and comes back. And so if we're going to go off of that, Ms. Ostergeen, then it's going to be at a 0 for a minute until the SPF is developed.
I'm okay with that. Board members, unless you want to go with what's being reported out now.
If you look at under meets focus, the board considers superintendent performance as indistinguishable from school system performance. And I think, so this is kind of gearing us towards that school performance framework. So I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing that we get a 0. I think
Wait,
this
where
is
you
just
at? I'm sorry.
under meets.
Number 4.
I mean, sorry, well, yeah, number 4, to meet focus, the second paragraph. I think this is kind of leading towards that. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing that we get a 0 as long as we know what we need to do, yeah. That's the whole purpose.
I
of it.
know, okay, so I know that the school performance framework is coming, so I know that when we're meeting focus, it's because we have it.
Right.
Okay, but to get us there, like Ms. Castro said, we're using
Old data.
old
Or
data
old system.
and yes, the current system that we have prior to developing the school performance framework. And so with that, I think we passed 0.
I think we're.
I think AJ would say, whatever we agree on is
Right.
fine, so.
So with that said, Mr. Ibarra, what do you score us?
If we use the old, then I think we're at preparing to focus.
Yes, 0.5.
Yes.
Mrs. Flores?
I still say 0.
Okay. I say 0.5. Ms. Guerra?
0.
0.
0.5.
So that was 3
3
at 0.5? Okay, so that's,
So we're at 2.89.
we're at 0.5. So for accountability 2.5. I'm sorry, I didn't write down accountability 1. What did we give ourselves?
0.
0. Okay. Now we're into structure. The board delegates to the superintendent operational authority to accomplish the vision and student outcome goals. So on structure, last time we scored ourselves a 4. So have we met a 12? So go ahead and read 12. Okay, so we read the meets focus, which is 12. But let me kind of give you some insight on where we're currently at, number 4. So if you read that first paragraph, and at the bottom it says, after the parentheses, it says, were placed on the consent agenda and more than 3/4 of the items were voted on using a consent agenda. And so if you look at the minutes that were given to you, these were only for the last 3 months. I think just the last one, December 20th, we did not, we pulled 58%. So if you look at that last page in your packet, it says percentage of consent items pulled is 58. So if we were to follow the Lone Star governance, we could only pull 25%. And so we didn't meet it because of last month.
And other months. I looked at October 18th, we didn't meet it. I looked at November 15th, we didn't meet it. The only one was December 6th, because this one was
There's a
one
public
consent item. And then we didn't meet it on the last 4. So we're not there because we're pulling too many items. And instead of, voting on all of the items, as many as we can, under consent agenda, we're pulling more than we should.
25%.
So we don't meet it. Plus, I'm also thinking we're regressing on this one, and we have to go back to preparing to focus. Look at the very end, at the very last one where it says community engagement, two-way stakeholder communication.
Okay, so we had that discussion last time. So in that discussion, they're just wanting us to track it. So it's not that we're doing it, it's just that we're tracking it. So we are tracking it. We have nothing because we don't have it in place, but we're tracking it.
So we're
And it
tracking
is
that we're not doing
something
it.
that I've talked to Dr. Savetta, actually I sent him an email. And so that is something that we're going to develop in the next few months so that we can go, because it kind of goes into your,
Masters.
and so we do need to start doing it.
So I have a question on what we were just
We're at
talking about.
1 then, we're
I was gonna say, should we be at 1?
We're at 1.
We've met all of what?
Well, except for the last one, community engagement.
No, okay.
We're
We're
tracking that.
tracking it.
We know that we're not doing it, and all they're asking is for us to track
We're
it.
tracking it.
Be aware.
No, we met
We're
once,
aware
so
that we're
at
not
1.
doing it, yes.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to the October 18th meeting, we had a lengthy discussion on it. And so they said, all we need to meet that is to track it.
Who was that?
Ed Vada and.
Oh, okay.
And,
Okay, I remember. Deanne? Okay, right, sure, okay. But we don't need, we're not at 4 because of the more than 3/4 of the items were voted on.
that is correct.
So we're actually at 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we went down to from 4 to.
My question on the consent on the 3/4. So we should be, what? Emailing our questions
Yes.
so that
So,
we're not
okay.
putting them here?
So the way the agenda is set, whatever is on consent has to do with operational. Maybe some Lone Star governance that I feel doesn't need to be warranted further discussion. And so that's what's on consent. And so if there are questions, it's more operational, more time to delve into. So then I believe ample time is given so that we send out the draft at least,
We usually do it Tuesday, Michelle.
which is almost 10 days before the board meeting. And then that Friday, we make it a final, which you're given 3 days, 3 to 4 days, and sometimes 6. I was looking at the time frame. Sometimes you're given 6 days to review. And so I think you have plenty of time to submit questions at that time. And like I said, you have every right to pull them, but then we're under the guidelines that we put for ourselves as to only discuss it at 2 minutes. And so, most of your questions that are going to be responded back in length time or that they have to go and research should be submitted in an email.
Yes. Gotcha.
Okay. So for structure, we were at a 4 last time.
I think we're at 1.
And I think we're at a 4 still.
No.
But 4 would mean that we're all the way at the bottom of 4, right?
No, 4 means that we're stuck on there. We can't go to 12.
No.
We've completed all of 1,
Yeah.
and so we're now on 4.
But we haven't met on 4, so you can't be at 4. You have to meet it all.
We gave ourselves a 4 last time.
Well, we did not read it right.
We were wrong.
We were wrong. We have to correct it. We overrated ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
because if we're not meeting all of that section, we can't give ourselves a
Can't
point.
give us-
No. We can't give ourselves 12. But if we are in the 4, we don't have to meet it all. We meet it all, then we go to the next one. Yeah, we met all of 1 to be on 4.
That's not the way I understood the
Yeah,
other
I
ones.
don't think
No.
so either. I think you have to master it to get all the points for it. So like you only get 15 points in masters when you're at the end of masters. Okay, is when you would get 15. And before that, you would stay at 12 until you finished all of the masters focus. And only then would you be able to get 15 points. But up until then, you'd only be able to get 12. So we should only be getting 1 point until we can finish all of 4. And then we can get 4 points. And then when we finish all of 12, we can get 12 points. And then when we finish all of 15, we can get 15 points. I mean, sorry, that's changing points, but you know what I mean, needs focus, master's focus.
Okay, so number 1, does everybody agree on that? All right, so we did regress on that one. All right, advocacy. The board promotes the vision. Last time we gave ourselves a 0. Do we see any improvement? And see, this is where that community engagement 2-way comes in, and we have not met that.
Can I ask for clarification on that 2-way community engagement? Would it satisfy our requirement if, I know that citizens to be heard when they speak up. Sometimes they have questions and concerns, and we're not allowed to respond. But if, like Dr. Saavedra sends a response on behalf of the board based on the question, would that be a two-way communication? Would that be
No,
a
so if you look at the first paragraph on this, it says the board has not arranged for any board member-led community engagement activities. So it has to be board-led, and where the community has, where they voice their concerns and the board members respond. And so that's that two-way engagement. It's not administration. In other words, the administration's not in the middle. It's a board and it's the community.
So it has to be the full board, like not
full board.
one board going to,
Their own
communities and talking one-on-one. It has to be
Right, and so
full
that
board.
is what we're, Dr. Saavedra and I are diligently, we're going to put it on the agenda, we can open it up for discussion and to discuss more or less what is our take of what that two-way engagement should look like and what it is.
Well, I think a solution to that is, we used to take our meetings to the schools. Would that not be a two-way communication?
No,
Have
because it's
meetings
still a
at the
board meeting.
campuses for the public?
It's still a board meeting. It has to be not a board meeting, not to discuss any operational, that we have to vote on any like consent items and stuff like that. This is like a roundtable type discussion.
Or just like a feedback.
Or
So, I
feedback.
think an example would be, Ms. Prado, is
Town hall meeting?
Town hall.
kind of like a town hall.
Community
If
engaged.
we have to go, all the board members would have to go to, let's say a school cafeteria and hold a similar event to like what the
Where we're holding
administration
it. You're the
did
speaker
with the
and
academies.
Each of us are the speakers.
So we would get up there.
You just,
Well, you can have an agenda, we can have the state of the address, state of the school, you know, where we're at, where our goals at, things like that. Discussing our student outcome goals, discussing our vision, you know, discussing items like that, and we can have an agenda set up, but where we are leading it
I
and not
think the
staff.
two-way part of it is where the community gets to respond to what we have to say and we actually engage in a dialogue. It's not just a presentation. It's actual dialogue between board members and the community.
Can you have individual board members going into their district to conduct the meeting?
I thought we could, but this says the
We
board.
can, but we would have to decide if that's what we're wanting.
Yeah, I think as a board, you decide, each of us will go into our respective districts and conduct these meetings.
Or we can do it
Because
together, or.
Because it says the board has arranged, meaning y'all have decided, for any board member-led, not board-led, but board member-led. So the fact that one individual board member leads a community meeting, as long as the board agrees that that's sufficient outreach, then it would be, you could do that.
So there could be 7 individual meetings.
Yeah, it's whatever we
Instead of one
decide
meeting
as
with
a
7
board.
members.
It's whatever we decide as a board that we want it to be.
Right.
I think that's the most feasible way to do it, because it's difficult, everybody together at the town hall meeting.
No, we're at the meeting.
We're at 0, right?
Okay.
Yes, we're at, I said we were at, I think
Bottom
I
line,
agreed we were at 0. Everyone else agree? So on advocacy, 0. All right, so now we are on unity. Last time we were at a 0. And if we read 0. Okay, do you think we moved out of a 0?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. So if we complete all those, we're able to go to 1?
Yes.
Okay, so why did that not apply last time?
Well, because no, we have to go to 1 to see if we fulfill all of 1.
In order to get 1?
In order to get one.
That doesn't work out for
And we did it that way.
And now we have.
Okay, no. So my question was, we're out of 0, but we have to complete all of 1 to get
Yes.
1?
Yes.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean,
Get the
We can't
point.
get 3,
You
if
get
we
the point and you
complete, if
haven't
we
finished
complete
that.
all of 1,
You get one.
then we go to 3. And we don't get 3 because we didn't complete it all, so we're still at 1.
But we haven't completed all of
but
it.
you've given yourself a 1 because you've completed all
All
of
of-
them.
Okay, but
You're
if we,
working towards the 3.
okay, but we completed all of 0, so we can't give ourselves a 1.
Well, let's see if we completed all of 1.
But if we complete all of 1, then we give ourselves a 3.
No.
No.
Give yourself a 1.
Okay, so we can't get a 3 because it's an and, but we can go from 0 to 1 because there is no and. Thank you. Do y'all see that?
I see the end.
All right, because we've met all of 0.
Okay. I'll agree with that statement.
So now, have we met all of 1? That's.
I don't think so because, hold on, let me read it. Dr. Savita, have we done a policy that contains ethics and conflicts of interest statement?
The board has a policy that contains.
I think
We do?
Yeah. You sign off on an annual basis, sign off on a conflict of interest.
Okay.
I think
Understand that it works.
the self-evaluating every quarter, we've started to do that, right?
The what?
The self-evaluating, that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, we did that last quarter and now we're doing this one.
I'd
We
say-
might be on 1.
I'd say we completed all of 1, so we're
I
at
think so.
1. So we're at
We're at 1. All right. Does everybody agree that we're at 1?
I think we could be at 3.
Okay, and so why do you say we could be at 3? Because we
Well-
completed all of 1?
Yes, I think we completed
Okay,
all.
so then why doesn't it tie to the other one?
No, that's not correct. We need to complete all of 3 to get it.
We have to earn, we have to complete it to earn it.
To get 1.
We have to complete what?
You have to complete
All of 3.
all of 3 to earn 3. You have to complete all of 1 to earn 1.
But we did complete all of 1.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I'm talking to Ms. Bravo, and she says
But
that she
if
thinks
you
we're at
read,
3, but we're not at 3.
if you read number 3, it says that attendance for all board members.
Okay, so
Oh, she
that-
means,
so that's why.
you think you're all the way done with 3. is what
Okay, okay, so I tried
Oh,
that
okay.
on, hold on.
70%.
On October 11th, 4 out of 7 were present. So I think that kicks us out because it has to be 5 out of 7.
7%.
On the 18th, we had 5 out of 7, so we were good. On the 1st, we had 6 out of 7, so we were good. On the 15th of November, we were already down 6, we were down 6 board members, so we had 6 out of 6, which was good. And then on December 16th, December 6th, we were down a 5, we were a total of 5 board members and we had 5. And then on the 20th, we had 5. So the only one that kicked us out was October 11th. So we did
And
not
that was
meet
the last
70%.
the previous 3 months, and that fell.
That's part of the 3 months, October.
But I think at our next evaluation, we
We should probably meet that.
achieve 3 at that time.
Yes,
Yeah.
We keep coming to the meetings.
yes, keep coming. Well, now we got, well, when we institute 2 more, and now we have to have at least 5 showing up. Okay, so for unity, we are at 1?
We're at 1.
All right. So, and then Mrs. Prado suggested that we would probably be at 3. So now let's go for projections, what our next quarter targets are. So for unity, do you think we could be at a 3?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's move up backwards. For advocacy, what do you think we could be at?
We have to,
Well, we have to do the community-led,
I don't think that's.
board member-led.
You think that's
community
doable in January, February, March? And March is our deadline.
That will be election, appointment and all that.
I don't know.
I think we could probably be at a 1. What do y'all think?
You think we're gonna have that two-way communication?
I think 1.
I think 1 too.
That could be our goal.
To go?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, for structure. So remember, we regressed on the structure, so I think we can go back to a 4 at least.
As long as we don't pull out any consent items more than we should.
Yeah.
We're
Everybody agree at a 4?
the 4.
Okay. Accountability number 2. You think we could be at a 1?
We have to track the annual cost of staff time spent on governance. Linda, can we be at a 1?
This includes the time of any staff member spent preparing for, attending, and debriefing after meetings. This includes all board authorized public meetings as well as all closed sessions and all hearings.
I think we're gonna be at a 0.5.
I think we ought to show 1 as a goal, though. What we're working towards, even though
Okay.
it is, but, you know.
I don't mind doing that.
Okay, we can do it. We can give ourselves a goal of 1. Accountability 1, which we have at 0. And so, oh yeah, I think we can do the annual targets. That's the only thing that we were missing. Let's see what 1 entails.
I think we should be at 4.
The monitoring calendar we have. Okay, that was my, that was also my email to Dr. Saavedra. On that monitoring calendar, we do not have the superintendent's evaluation of performance. When we're going to monitor, when we're going to discuss that needs to be on there. But somewhere else I read that, wait, I'm looking at my notes. I sent it to you, Dr. Saavedra, that the board self-evaluation must not be done past 40 days, 45 days prior to a superintendent evaluation.
Must not be done.
So it has to be, we have to do a board self-evaluation and then within 45 days do the superintendent.
Okay.
So I know currently the way we're set up to do evaluations, we have one January, we have one in April,
Right.
and I think we have July. And so I think last year we did the superintendent's evaluation in September.
Correct.
So it kicks us out of the 45 days. Because I think we took 60 days. Because we had it at the end of September, and we did our evaluation like the first week of June.
Okay. Okay, so, but it's not to exceed.
We have to, board evaluation, and then within 45 days, do the superintendent evaluation.
And we had done it in 60 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so even though, is it when the superintendent's evaluation is finalized? Or is it when it's just, because I know it was presented.
No, finalized.
And then it came back and then.
Was it? Because I thought I saw September 20th on the
I
minutes,
think we started September 20th.
and then we had to,
That's what I, okay, so it's when it's
I
finalized.
think it was finalized.
oh, so then we took longer.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put that on the.
So I don't know where to go between, because I know we're on, like, we can go like to the end of the month, and then maybe try to see if we can move this up, but I think the reason why we were doing yours in September, because we had all the.
The accountability numbers come back in August, and they keep pushing back at, right, so we get all of our finalized numbers.
That was one of the, just one of the things.
Which is one of the, in the previous instrument, he had very strong, high goals, very, connected to all of our accountability numbers, so that's why.
Yeah.
Many superintendent evaluations are done in January. January is a more common month for, matter of fact, September is pretty unusual.
Really?
But-
So
but-
we do that in January, and we're having our quarterly in January, then we meet that timeline.
Yeah, if you wanted to do that, because you have an 18-month window to do it, so we finalized.
Okay, and there was another segment on that. It says, only if it's a new superintendent can we go 18 months. if it's a current superintendent, it has to be every 12 months.
Well, that,
We do that
is it 15? 15.
Okay, with the LSU.
But, it's two different things. You're talking about the law and you're talking about the Lone Star County.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm talking about the law, I don't know about.
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, that's what I read, I'm like, okay, more. things.
Well-
So, we can visit it and see.
Sure.
We just won't pay the superintendent for 3 months.
Thank you, Ben.
So it's just something to look at, because I know it's coming if we want to end up at Master Focus. Okay. All right.
So what's our goal?
Accountability 1, I,
Can I ask a question?
15.
For that second paragraph, that long one under preparing to focus,
Mhm.
which is called the monitoring report, can that be done? All of that underneath there?
I think it's being developed, because I think I had sent you an email, Belinda, saying that the monitoring report can be a graph.
Yeah, constraint. Previous 3 report. Okay, so the measures showing the previous 3 reporting periods, the current reporting period, and the annual deadline targets. Superintendent's evaluation of performance not met. Okay, so this is,
So since we just started and we have a baseline, we are having a graph, and we've already reported one, because we did the beginning of the year reports.
right,
And so then we are now.
this next one will be into the middle of the year.
And so then we're, as long as you have the beginning, and then now we have the middle together in a report.
Okay,
And then on the third one, that one.
and that'll be our 3.
Yes, and then inching or declining, whatever our annual target is,
Okay,
because we already have that.
okay.
And so that's how I see that interprets that.
Now, just for some clarification, this is just for progress measures, or this is also for constraints?
Let's see.
Board report the evidence to the board whether or not reality matches the adopted student outcome goals and constraints and progress measures.
Yeah, we have to do the go and constraint being monitored,
Okay,
which is
for the past 3
attendance.
times, okay.
The attendance.
For the last 3, okay. And so the same thing as we go along with our constraint reports,
Yes,
we'll make sure we compare them to the previous one.
yes, the
Okay.
previous report.
So are we working
Think of
toward?
4.
No, we're working towards 1 because they haven't developed that one yet, right?
Well, we haven't finished this year.
Yeah,
Right.
we're just starting.
So it should be a 1, working towards a 1.
Oh, working towards it. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
for our goal.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I think accountability should be working towards a 1, yes, Mrs. Crowley?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, sorry. Vision 4,
Vision
we were at a 0.5. Mhm.
And we work towards adopting an annual target for each
Right.
goal, CPM, constraint progress measure.
That's the only thing we were lacking,
That's the only thing we're lacking.
is the annual targets, right?
So work towards a 1.
So I think we could, let's see what 1 entails.
We just don't have the annual target yet.
Yeah, we should
We
do
need to
4.
provide that.
Oh, yeah, then we'd be at a 4. So I think 4.
That's the only thing we're missing.
I agree, 4.
Okay.
Vision number 3. We gave ourselves a 3.
So
All of them.
if we're working towards a 9, can we say that the next quarter, the board members and the superintendents agree that the constraints will challenge the organization and will require adult behavior change?
I think 9.
I think so.
And will we be able to self-evaluate against one of them each month?
Yeah, we're working on putting those on each month.
Just for some clarification, Ms. Oshigi, so when we're speaking for constraints, is this the constraints on the superintendent, or is these the constraints on the board?
Okay, on the board, we don't have any targets, or we don't even have any deadlines.
Okay, but you do have constraints though?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and so that's what it's talking about, that we have to evaluate ourselves against those constraints once a month.
And that's
the
yours?
board.
Okay, but on the superintendent's grade,
It's
we have to have a
annual target.
annual target.
We
Okay, got
have the deadline, annual target for the deadline, but we don't have, I mean, we have the deadline target,
it.
we don't have the annual.
The annual, every year, okay. Simple.
And so I think we can do the once a month evaluate, so I think probably be at a 10, at a 9?
9.
Okay, in order to be at a 10, we have to do all of that.
Right.
9 for Vision 3, Vision 2. Okay, Vision 2, we are at a 12.
If I may add, at this point, because it's aligned to this item, we had our first conference call with our strategic design to get that planned, and that is beginning focus groups February 15th. We're having our design days, February 27th and 28th, and then our create days to creating, and the purpose of this is going back to refresh our strategic design, align to Lone Star Government's goals, aligned to our SGS, and it will be involving and I know Ms. Prado, you were involved in our strategic design last time, but it will be involving parents, community members, teachers, students. So I just want to let you know that I think 15 might be very doable, because that, again, depending on when we look at, but that will be completed. We're hoping to complete everything by April 17th. And if we could speak later, Ms. Ostegin, because we do need board representation at 2 to 3 board members at these meetings, but I think this is doable with what we're planning on for our strategic design.
All right, so Vision 2, we can get a 15.
What's the next report?
April, the quarterly, we are evaluating ourselves in April. I'll just make it the end of the month.
And through this process, we are hoping to complete our school performance framework as well. A lot of work.
All right, so Vision 1. We gave ourselves a 12. Oh, I think this applies to the strategic design.
So I think this would be a dual,
Also doable.
doable.
15.
Yes, 15. All right, so we can go over what we did. For the next quarter targets, Vision 1, 15. Vision 2, 15. Vision 3, 9. Vision 4, 4. Accountability 1, 1. Accountability 2, 1. Structure 4. Advocacy 1. Unity 3. Now, I haven't calculated them, but in order for us to be considered having good growth, we have to grow 20% each time.
That's 53.
On the next quarter, what do we get for this current quarter? 30. Yeah, that's above, because last quarter we got 23.5. So we've grown more than 20%. So good job, board members.
I don't know if it is the right time to mention this, but since Ms. Castro's saying that they're going to be doing the student, family, teachers, community members involved with all that you have planned, once all of that is finalized, is there a way that besides having it posted on our website, that it ought to be posted in this board room? What's been, what has been community-led and student-led and teacher-led that has to do with student outcome goals. I think it's very important that the more people see it, the better we'll be able to move
What
forward.
you have at the campuses? I know you have at the campuses,
Yes.
certain stuff, so maybe you
Well,
have it in.
We used to have our vision posted right there. I don't know what happened to it, but I know.
I mean, we have room, we have
Oh, absolutely.
side walls and everything where we can
I agree.
post. I think it's something that,
Absolutely.
if we're gonna live it and breathe it, then we need to display it and let the community start
I
seeing
agree.
Okay, also, I think we can discuss Mrs. Flores attending the last Lone Star Governance and some of the tweaks that were done prior to the one we did a year ago.
I can get my things together here. I did attend the two-day workshop, very similar to what we attended a year ago in Austin for 2 days. This was in Region 20. And AJ Crabbill and Deanne, she's got a long last name, I can't remember, but they co-presented. It was an intense 2-day, full day. There were some, actually it's the same participating manual, but some of the activities were a little different in that we switched around with different people who were in the room. The group was a lot smaller. As a matter of fact, Crystal City ISD, their whole board and the superintendent went again, and they were there when we were there last year. My hometown, Dilley ISD, attended, their whole board and the superintendent. And then it was myself, one board member, and another board member from Houston ISD who had missed hers, so she needed to come here. And then there was a gentleman that was there for representing a board for the charter schools. So it was a small enough group that we mingled a lot and we moved around a lot. And we were able to very quickly go through different types of activities. And I won't name those because if that's something that's in the future, then we're going to be probably using the same of that. But there were a few more items, a few more little bullets or paragraphs added to the framework because I came home right away and started looking at last year's framework and the one that I had just received, and there were a few of those added, which probably we'll be looking at, in the future when we do get trained. But I think it was worthwhile. I did it because I needed a refresher. Even though I read this a lot and we discuss it a lot, I still felt that if I don't hear it again for a second time, maybe even a third time, it'll sink in more. But because I believe in it and I believe this is the way that the district needs to move towards as far as the way a district is run, I felt I needed to have a second. So I felt that there was a lot of clarity in the second time that I attended. It was good to see the reactions of other board members who have been board members for many years, and for the reactions to say, I wish I would have known this 8 years ago when I came into the board. I need to go back and make sure that I do these things for the good of our students, because that's what I'm here for students. Had I known this, everything I've done in the past, I would do it differently. Those are the kind of testimonies you hear there at the end. But it's a 2-day intense, which again, I don't mind going through it a third time. To me, it's worth it because the more, like I said, the more I hear it, the more I feel that I can learn it and able to utilize it and help run our board meetings, as they should in a way as we should be progressing.
Good. Could you attest to how we fare with Crystal City? Because we went at the same time.
Yes, Crystal City went the same time. As a matter of fact, when we went last January, a year ago, we were one of the first to go through this model. And out of 1,200 school districts, less than 1% have received this training. So when you talk to other people from different school districts, and you start talking to them about the Lone Star governance and this framework, if they haven't had this training, they don't know what you're talking about. So a lot of what you're hearing us say and do here is because, we went through that training. Crystal City went to the same training with us, and they had us do the board's quarterly progress tracker. Administration submitted, I think, the minutes from like the last 3 board meetings. So we had to look at that, and as we were looking at that, we were well ahead of Crystal City. And they went to training at the same time we did. But they're still finding, I guess what they're saying is excuses as to why not to do it. When I commend our board president for pushing us and getting us to where we need to be, because as we move forward and as we're looking at the self-evaluation, it just shows us how much more we have to grow. So I think it's a good thing.
All right. Board members, are there any comments, questions, or concerns? All right, so do I hear a motion to approve this January 17, 2018 quarterly tracker?
Motion to approve?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Ms. Rivera, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. And do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Ms. Guerra. And this time, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries, and the time is 10:05 p.m.
Yeah.